Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode number 31, and it concerns why is it so hard to tithe? Here's a hint that you'll find out today as we go through this lesson. It has almost nothing to do with money. And in fact, if you had to make a 100% scale, money is a very, very, very small part of why the tithe is so important and fundamental to our growth in our Christian development. 90%, in my opinion, has nothing to do with money of the tithing process and mechanisms. And you're going to be very much intrigued on how we express and open up the Bible's meanings as it relates to the struggle of pastors trying to convince their congregations to tithe and members trying to justify, is it worth it? Look, here's the basic story that's the backdrop of today's lesson. It's taken from the 32nd chapter of Genesis. And it basically covers the story of Jacob leaving Beersheba, which is synonymous with the place of seven wells. It's right in the middle between the shores of the Dead Sea and the Mediterranean. So about halfway between maybe 40, 50, 60 miles south of Jerusalem. And Jacob has been given instructions to go get a wife from a particular clan of folks that lives way north, so several days' journey. And as he leaves Beersheba, he goes about 20, 25 miles, which was a regular day's journey then, and he camps out. He's tired, and he lays down, and before he lays down, he grabs this big old rock, and the rock is laid flat so that he can rest his head on it. As he's falling asleep, he dreams the dream, and many of you have heard this story about Jacob's ladder. He dreams the dream, and he looks up, and he sees the ladder coming from heaven to earth, and angels are going down and up and down and up, and eventually he sees God at the top of the ladder telling Jacob in his dreams, Jacob, hi, it's me, God Almighty. I am the God of Abraham, I am the God of Isaac, your dad, and I am telling you that where you are laying right now, your head is laying, your body is laying on this piece of earth, it will belong to you. And that all of your offspring and your offspring and your great grandchildren, that they won't be enough to cover the entire face of the earth. That's how plentiful and blessed you are, and I promise it this day. So the story goes that Jacob is now awake on the next day after seeing this dream and feeling the promises and the faithfulness of God. And the stone that he was laying on, he sets up as a pillar. Now, what is a pillar? A pillar is a cultural distinction of the children of Israel, where that if anything happened of significance, that they would put up a pillar. Sometimes it's many stones, and that every time somebody passes it, they would recognize that a wonderful circumstances of that happened to them happened right there. And so in the 22nd verse of this 32nd chapter of Genesis, Jacob basically makes a pronouncement to God that says that because of what you are promising and the faith that you have had in me and the blessings that you have put in my way, I'm going to put up this stone, and the stone will represent how that I recognize and understand where my blessings come from. They come from the promises, the purposeful presence of God, and something that I cannot remove myself from this day forth, because now I've got a new understanding of life itself. And that opens our story about why tithing is so incredibly essential to growing as a Christian. Now, I hope that I've piqued your interest. Let's begin. All right, so let's start talking about why is tithing so hard for far too many Christian folks. And the clue is it's not really about money. That's why it's so hard. Here, I'll tell you what I mean. The very first thing to emphasize from a New Testament perspective is tithing is no longer, is not, I repeat, not an obligation, but rather a purposeful privilege. The concept of tithing is has a much deeper meaning and purpose beyond a few dollars on the offering plate on Sunday or Wednesday or Saturday. In a very real sense, tithing is the biblical partnership with two other base components of our journey in Christian development: faith and thankfulness. Faith and thankfulness. These two concepts, as viewed through a Christian perspective, are for good reason directly linked to the tithing process. Now, the tithe itself is a symbol of our understanding that everything that we have is from God. Tithing is not primarily about gaining cash. And I really, really wish that preachers and pastors will stop teaching that, because tithing really has a lot more to do with how we understand our connection to God. That is its primary purpose. And we've got to remember and we got to recognize the utter completeness of God's giving to us if we are going to have any opportunity to fully realize the purpose and blessings in participating in the tithing process. Again, tithing is not primarily about cash. I really want you to get that in your heads. Money and tithing is not the point, it is the mechanism. It has a much deeper purpose and divine symbolism. As much as, say, the cross is a symbol of Christ's sacrifice on our behalf, so is the tithe a symbol of our understanding, and I would then say also our acceptance of the immense and overwhelming giving that God has bestowed upon us. Now, when we put Psalm 50 and Psalm 56, 50, 14, and 56 together, we're going to see the clear intentions that ought to come from our participating within this tithing system. It says, 50:14, offer to God thanksgiving. Thank you, God. And pay your vows, your commitments to the Most High. 56:12. Vows made to you are binding upon me. O God, I will render praises, in this context, thanksgiving, acknowledging what you have done for me. My vows, within the context of the tithing system, are a representation of us acknowledging how important and how important God is and how connected we are to this understanding. Now, first, the tithe is generally thought of as 10% of your increase. If you're in an agrarian society, then 10% of your corn, 10% of your wheat, 10% of your kuman, 10% of your whatever. All right. If you're in a service place, then 10% of your time. If you're in a monetary, then 10% of your money. You are giving to God an acknowledgement of what God has supplied to you. Some may say, well, listen, I'm a self-made woman. I'm a self-made man. Ain't nobody helped me. Man, shut up. The fact that you've got breath in your lungs and your parents let you live in their house, you have not done anything by yourself. You have participated in the process, some of us more than others. But to think that you've gotten everywhere you've gotten to by yourself is remarkably arrogant. The second thing I want you to remember is that tithing is, again, a systematic and disciplined giving pattern that should not be confused with what's called an offering. We have a tendency in some Christian worship settings to refer to the offering times as now it is a time, my brothers and sisters, my fellow Christian souls, to give your tithes and offerings to God. Offerings are different from tithes. They're clearly different. They are not synonymous. In fact, in 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 3, it specifically, Paul teaches on the difference and how offerings should be delineated completely different than the tithing system. Now, setting aside an extra offering above and beyond the tithe was to prepare for other needs, both expected and unexpected. Now, look at this. Now, concerning the collection for the saints, I have given orders to the churches of Galatia, so you must do also. And on the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, whatever your increase is, that there be no collections when I come. Don't wait until I have to ask you for it. Do the things which are reasonable and right so that we can take care of what we need to take care of when the time comes. And when I come, I'll continue now, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send to bear your gift to Jerusalem. Again, 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 3. And again, I want you to remember here, they're giving, these early Christians, these saints, are giving for other saints who may be in need. And so that when I show up, whenever the need becomes available, understood, acknowledged, publicized, we don't have to go around begging for money. Few of us have been trained as children to save, tithe, invest, and reduce debt. And that's a big ouch. One of the reasons why it may be difficult for people to tithe is because they really haven't been trained the value and the benefit of systematically saving, giving to the service of God, investing for their growth, and to reduce whatever debts they may have. This pie pattern here over on the left of your screen is just a simple example of what we should be teaching our children and, to be honest, ourselves. The United States is by far the least industrialized country in the world who saves money. The reason why the rich get richer, because they understand the benefits of investing. The reason why many churches continue to be well off while others are in debt or in poverty is because the people in their churches give on a systematic basis and invest their dollars into other things so that when the time comes, they can guarantee the future of their church. The good news is practicing in the tithing, saving, investing, and reducing debt mentality is not limited to rich folks. It can be done for anybody, at any circumstances, at any time, under any context. So let's just talk about tithing. Tithing. If you earn $40,000 a year, you take away 10% of that, that's $4,000. That leaves $36,000 for you to administer personally. Now think about that. Most of us waste 10% of our income anyway. We buy stuff, waste stuff that we don't need, we don't use, that really is only a temporary fix. And I'm not saying, go out, don't make yourself feel happy 1 or 2 times a year, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. God bless you. That's fine. But if you forget about where your blessings come, I guarantee you won't tithe. If you're not used to saving and investing and reducing your debt, I guarantee you won't tithe. You'll throw $5 in here, $50 in there, and you'll think you've done your part. All that is shouting is that you have zero connection to God as it relates to understanding how God has blessed you. Now, teaching these 2 saving and debt reduction commitments early enough when we then financially empower our children. If I give $50 to one of my kids, I will immediately say, here's $50 for you because I love you. That leaves $45 for you. Now, after about 1,000 times giving them something, they know exactly what I mean. If I give, which I did recently, $75 to my 12-year-old, I said to them, here's $75. You figure out which church, which ministry you're going to get $7.50 to. And then you do whatever else you want to do with the rest. It is imperative that the tithing system be a part of a financial responsibility and the abilities to become sustainable beyond not only our own lifetime, but the lifetimes of our children, our grandchildren. If we're talking about a congregational setting, not only the lifetime of this pastor, the next pastor, and 3 pastors past that. How many of us are not investing in our church's financial future and stability? Well, I can't do that, Pastor. I'm still trying to pay the rent. Probably because you're not following the diagram that's on this screen. We have got to be able to teach our children and ourselves and our church communities to save, to serve, and to invest. Now, look, God sees your heart, not your money. God sees your heart, not your money. Let me talk about what I mean. Tithing doesn't make you holy. Shame on every pastor and preacher that puts that story out there. It just sends a message to God that you are committed to thanking him for your blessings, big or small. Tithing tells God and your family of your intentions to be in an open and growing relationship with the creator of all that is known and unknown. It's really, really simple. I can't tell you the disgust I have with some of my brethren as I was growing up, where they would literally have the offering tithe sections, and everybody who had their tithe envelopes would line up on the left, and everybody who was going to do loose offerings would line up on the right. And those who needed to have the ushers come to them because they couldn't get out, the ushers would stand in the middle of the aisle, and they would go to you. Now, that sounds like very organized giving, right? Wrong. What the symbolism was that tithers, as they hold up their envelopes, were better than everybody else, were separated from everybody else. Look, in Matthew 23 and 23, it says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithes of mint and anise and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone." In other words, it isn't just the cash. It is what you are committed to do in the service of God. Your tithes are a symbol of how connected you are to God. It isn't about money. It's about your heart. Jesus preaches shouts, whispers, cajoles, prompts your heart, the essence of who you are in your connection to not only your own humanness, but to the God that made you. If fully participating in systematic tithing still seems challenging for you, if you think I'm still just one of those preachers trying to make you give more money, then I want you to think and pray on the following scriptures from God's word. It comes from 2 Corinthians 8 and 12, and it reads, "For if there is first a willing mind, it is accepted according to what one has, not according to what they do not have." Let me rephrase that for you as it relates to tithing. For if there is first a willing and understanding mind that God has given you the breath of life, the workings of your mind, the abilities to love and lead a life that brings you both dignity and purpose, it is accepted according to what you have, regardless of your station in life. Whether you work for $8 an hour or $80 an hour or $250 an hour, or you're living off of your great-grandfather's money. If you understand who God is and who you are in God, tithing and support of not only yourself, your family, and your church is not going to be difficult. And not according, meaning you're going to give yourself excuses. I can't tithe. I can't save. I can't do this because I don't have much. You don't have much because your mind is not willing to receive the process that the Bible has told you that tithing is a part of. So now that we said that, I want to ask you a few questions, and then we're going to open this up and we'll talk about it for a little bit. If tithing is a privilege and not an obligation, what does that say about our current giving patterns or the lack thereof? Another question. If tithing represents our commitment to express thankfulness, then why aren't we giving like we should? Why do adults wait to be asked personally before they give in support of ministry? These are some questions I want you to think about that we're going to answer, that we're going to work through. Well, I've asked you 3 questions, and I think those 3 questions were covered in the bulk of our lesson. But I just want to say this to you as we close. Tithing has really never been about money or property or grain or stuff. Tithing has been about a symbolism of your connection and your commitment to grow in the intimacy of the relationship between you and God. It is a public and private proclamation that I get it. I understand completely that my life, my very breath, the blood that flows through my veins is supplied by you, O Lord. And that I am going to continually proclaim it with a small portion of whatever my increase is. And I'm going to testify publicly and privately that I understand what God is and what God has done for me and what God is still doing for me. And whether I make $50 a week or $50,000 a week, it is not the amount of money. It is the acknowledgement of how essential God is and will be continually in sustaining blessings. Whatever you have, meager or great, is what you are proclaiming, your understanding that you didn't have to have them. And that by your increase, whatever it may be, you're going to testify that you recognize God's place in them. Oh, I hope you hear me today. This lesson really isn't all that difficult. And I don't want, if your pastors out there, minister wannabes, Christian educators, or people who just sit in the pews, don't think you're obligated to give money to a church. You are not. You are privileged to express your connection to God. God bless you. God keep you. And I can't wait to see you next week. It's going to be great. Next week is all about Enoch and how he disappeared, why he disappeared, and why God says, you're so special, I'm going to prove it, and how it got into the Bible. It's a wonderful story. It's got great lessons for us, and I don't want you to miss it. All right. Bye-bye for now. We'll talk to you next time. Now, for those of you who have already set up your PayPal or Venmo account, I want you to point the camera of your device directly at either the PayPal or the Venmo little square thing with all the dots on it. All you got to do is focus your camera on it and allow it to get it in focus, and the camera and the phone or your iPad or your tablet will automatically take you to the giving screen. It is not difficult. It may be new to some of you, may not be new to others, but this is how the vast majority of the support comes in, is through either PayPal or Venmo. Point your camera directly at it. Either one, doesn't matter. Get it close enough where you're only just seeing this UPC code of either PayPal or Venmo, and leave it there until it focuses, and it'll automatically take you to where you want to go. All right. God bless you. God keep you. And we will see you next week.